somebody shared this cool thing on the Facebook group. Jeff made these gift card ornaments, which were kind of cool. And then I think they're really cool. And then somebody in the comments was saying, Myra was saying that if we could make something like that, like similar to the cash holder that we have, and it doesn't have to have a design, but it could be made so you could like modify it. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to like show you how to make something like this. So so yeah, let's get started. I prepared. Let's get started by. I'm gonna open just a new Cuttle project, and I'm gonna call it the gift card holder. Maybe let's call it ornament, since I wanna make it into an ornament. So I think this is the basic idea. Like looking at these pictures, I could see that each one of these has like 3 layers. It has like a back, something in between to hold the card, and then like the front layer to hold it in place. And then reading the comments here, Jeff mentioned that there were some comments how I don't have to, but yeah, he showed this picture where he's showing that he added a nice piece of like glitter to kind of hide the card. So that's just like a cool consideration to have. So I think let's discuss the construction first, and then I'll get started with the project. So I have something here. So I think the idea is to have like a gift card. This is just some random generic gift card I found. And then the idea is that we want to have like a base where the gift card goes. And so as you can see already, this base needs to be a little bit bigger, so it accommodates a sort of spacer. It's kind of like a C-shaped spacer that goes into it like that. So the spacer is C-shaped because we need to like move it in and out. And then once this is assembled, like we don't want the card to fall like that. So the top, or like the frame, has to go on like these. And the frame needs to be a little bit smaller than the card itself, so the card stays in place, like it doesn't fall out. So I think this would be the basic construction. And so the basic construction has like 3 layers, right? That we want to like work on. And all these 3 layers should be based on the size of the card itself. So let's do it. So I was looking around, and I just simply Googled standard gift card size, and it seems like this is the size for gift cards and credit cards. There's the AI overview, whatever. But so I think I'm gonna base things on that particular size. So let's get started with that. So here we go. I think I want to start by creating just a simple card component that is gonna be like the base for everything, just the size of the card. So I'm gonna name this component. I'm gonna call it the card, and that component should be a simple rectangle. I'm gonna grab a rectangle from the left and place it on my canvas, and I want to size it to those specific dimensions. So basically, that would be the scale. And I could just simply size it here, but I'm gonna start by creating the parameters, so I can like kind of drive everything based on that. So I'm gonna call it the card width, and then I'm gonna create another one called the card height. And so let me just double check those sizes again. So the card width should be 2.125, and the card height should be 3.375 inches. 3.375 inches. So now what I want to do is kind of like plug those into these dimensions. So the width would be the X. So I'm just going to type it. I'm going to card width, it kind of gets autofilled for me. And then the card height. Sorry. Instead of that, it should be card height. And so that gives me my basic card dimensions. And looking at these card, these has like kind of rounded corners. So I just kind of wanted to round it to just to match it like kind of closely. So to these, I'm just gonna go to modify, and then there is an option called round corners. And I was measuring it, and it's about 0.1 inches. Something like this. When you're doing this kind of design, where you have like actual objects that you're working with, one cool trick is that you can go to view, and then there is an option that says zoom to real size. And so this is going to zoom it. And so you can sort of like place the card on the screen and to see if like you're somewhat correct. And if that's the first time you're doing it, you can also, it's going to show you this option that says calibrate screen. And so essentially, since we're talking about cards, you would place the gift card or the card on the screen and then kind of move these until it matches. And so that kind of calibrates your screen to, I just messed up with my calibration, but so then when you're done, you could use a regular card or even a ruler, and then when you're done, you hit calibrate screen. And so now every time you hit view and zoom to real size, then it's going to zoom it to a good approximation of what the object is. So it's a quick pro tip. So let's start. Oh, so another thing I wanted to mention, these, I usually place the objects like right on the center of the canvas, and by default, like every shape or object is going to have this origin point. And so the origin point implies that like that's the center of rotation. So if I rotate things, you can see that it rotates based on the center. And if I change the width or the height, it all changes in reference to that center. 1, 2, 5. And so sometimes that's, most of the time that's convenient, but sometimes you want to do it a slightly different way. So I'm actually going to do that. I'm going to move these so the midpoint at the bottom is at the center, because I kind of like want it to grow from that point. And then I'm going to change the origin point. So for that, you can hold Command or Control, Command on Mac and Control on Windows. And then you get this like transform center thing that you can move around. So I can move it around, and if I place it right here at the origin, what that changes is that now if I rotate things, you can see that it rotates based on that point. And if I grow it, if I change, for example, the height, you know what? Something I'm going to do is I'm going to add a comment here. I'm going to say the standard cards are 2.125 inches, because I'm going to be changing this a bunch. So I'm going to add a comment here. Cards are 3.375. That's just my comment to like remember. So what I did there with the transform origin is that now if I change the height, you can see that it's going to change based, this point is going to remain stationary, and then it's going to change based on that. 3.375. So, okay, we have the card. And so I'm going to start with the backer. So I'm going to create another component. I'm going to call it the backer. And so all the components I create are going to be based on that card component that I created. So just for a quick reference, what I want out of the backer is it's essentially the card, but like expanded a little bit by some amount. So when I do that, I'm just going to place that card component that we created. I'm going to place that origin right there in the center, and I'm going to expand it. And so I'm going to select that and apply the modifier called expand or offset. And so that immediately, you can see the results. It expands expands my card component by some amount. This amount is determined by this distance. But I want to keep track of that. I kind of want to know what that's going to be. So I'm actually going to extract that as a parameter. I'm going to move it to the project. And that I'm just gonna call it the border. That's gonna be like the border surrounding the card. The reason I want to do this is because I want to reuse it. I want to keep on using it. Let's make it like a 1/4 inch. There we go. So that would be my backer to start with. I'm just gonna make it red because it's gonna be a cut. And then let's create another component that is similar to it. I want to now create that like C-shape component. So let's look at it overhead here. So now I have the backer. Now I want to create this kind of like C shape. So if we look at it carefully, it's essentially like the backer, but we subtract the card itself, so we can like move it out. So that's kind of like how I'm going to think about it. So I can say that that one is going to be essentially the backer. I'm going to place it here. And then I'm going to add the card to that. And the way I'm going to, so if I subtract this one from this one, I kind of get close, but not quite. I actually want to sort of expand this one up. And so this is the reason I chose to make the way the card expands this way, because I wanted to just sort of cut through. So if I take that card component, something that might be a little strange is that if we look at the scale now, the scale is just 1 when I put the component here, and the scale is not exactly, you know, the card width and the card height. So that's because then the component has its own scale, but then whenever you place it somewhere else, you can sort of like scale it based on that. So when it's 1, that means it's the same size as the original component. But if I make it like, say, for example, 2, you can see that the proportions are the same, but it's twice. It's, you know, it's twice the size, but the proportions remain the same. But so what I want to do is actually something kind of tricky. I'm going to make it, let's reset it. Let's make it 1. But what I want to do is not have a uniform scale. I actually want the X component, the horizontal component, to be the same, but I want to change the Y by some amount. So instead of making it 1, you know, I could make it 2 if I want. So you can see that it only stretches the Y component. 2 might be too much. I could do something like more tricky. I could say like, you know, keep it 1, but add the border. And so hopefully what that does is that like it punches up through the top. And so I get to create that like kind of C shape. And in order to make it like a true C, you know, C shape that I can cut, I can select both of those. And then I'm going to apply a difference. So I want to subtract 1 from the other. So I end up with that C. And most importantly, I can still change the card width and the card height, and they should work. So let's check that it's working. So if I change the width, yeah, that all kind of accommodates. And if I change the height, that also kind of accommodates the thing. I'll correct it here in a moment. So I think that's for the C shape where like the card should go in. Now we want to create the front, the third layer. So I want to create another component. So I'm going to create it here. I'm going to call it the front. And so the front, it's constructed, it's very similar to what we just did. We want to have something like the backer. So I could just grab the backer and put it in place. But I think eventually I'm going to be adding a hole here, you know, a way to hang it. So I'm going to just kind of recreate the way I made the backer. So the way the backer was done is that it was just the card. I added an expand, and I expanded that exactly by the border. So I kind of recreated the way I made the backer. I'm even going to make it red. And then I want to use again the card. I'm going to place it right on the center. And I want to just inset it a little bit. So I get this, so yeah, this is the front. And so I want these square to be smaller than the card itself. So I'm going to kind of inset it. I'm going to go in relationship to it. So there is a modifier for that. So I'm going to check that, and I'm going to hit modify, and there is one called contract or inset. So that insets the card component. That might be too much. I'm going to, the default is like 0.1. I'm going to go something like these. So I kind of retain those corners. And I think this is the basic structure of the thing. So now I can actually go ahead and cut it. Sometimes for cutting things, it's nice to create an additional component that we can call the cut, where we place all the things we want to cut. There is a super convenient way of, one way to do it is I can simply drag the backer here, drag the, I'm going to call it the middle. I can drag the middle here. Then I can drag the front for my little sandwich. And this is legit. This works. One slight downside of doing it this way is that whenever you start changing the dimensions, sometimes you can start getting these like overlaps. And even if I place it, one under the other, in this case, if I start changing the height, they're gonna overlap over each other. So the very convenient way of doing it without this kind of thing happening is there is a kind of built-in component called auto layout. So I'm gonna search here, auto layout. Right. So you drag that one into the canvas. And what the auto layout does is that it can grab kind of any existing component and then lay it out and even like space it out if you want. So in order to place all the components here, we just change this list. So we can you can see that the list corresponds to a circle, a rectangle, a polygon, and a star. We can see those in there. But if we delete all of these, I deleted too many things. If I delete these, I can lay out my components. I know I want my backer. I can just start typing it. It appears there, comma. I know I want my middle. And I know I want my front. And then I press play, so everything. And now they get laid out nicely there, kind of automatically. Auto layout is really nice because now if I change the width, you can see how they kind of move along. And so at this point, I can go ahead and go back to my default card size and then my card height, 3.375. And now I can just simply download it. I can go File, Export SVG, and I should be able to assemble this thing. This is the way I cut it. I actually pre-assembled one just to make sure it was working. So the idea is that, you would glue these here and then glue these here, and then you would end up with something like this. And so I can just kind of, I can insert my card. I did this a lot of chipboard because it's like a quick, easy way for me to prototype things in case. But I think at this point you could cut it out of different materials. And so it slides nicely. It stays in place. And then even with this thin chipboard, I could add like a little piece of decorative paper in here. I think it looks neat and functional. So at this point, we can actually start adding all the kind of niceties. I think the first one would be to add like a hole to go, to carry on with this inspiration. So it can be an ornament. And so let's add it. So we know that that's going to go on the backer. And I'm going to choose this very simple way of adding a hole, which I've kind of used, I've talked about before. So I'm going to give this a fill so it makes sense. So let's make it red. And so what I want to do is grab a circle. That's going to be my hole. And I want it to be placed exactly like here. But let me just place it randomly for a moment, and then let's figure out the hole. The hole needs to be about 0.25 inches, a quarter inch big. And I want it to be, I want it to have a stroke. Instead of being a hairline stroke that is just a cut, I'm gonna uncheck that. And so that gives it, a sort of thickness to the stroke. And then, as you can see here, the stroke is right dab in the middle of the circle, and I want it to be on the outside. So there is an option here, alignment. I'm gonna be outer. The reason that's nice is that now the hole itself is always 2.25, and the width of that outside, it's gonna be whatever I choose to. And I think that width, let's make it an 1/8 of an inch, 0.125. And the next thing I want it to be is that I want that to be red. So it matches the color of these. And if I place it here, it kind of disappears. So that means I want the fill to be white, because the white is what makes it a hole. But in this case, I wanna place it so it kind of moves around with the card height, because right now it's not gonna move. And so I know that this little guy can be placed, if I were to place it like right at the origin, and I change the position to card height. Sorry, if it disappears, is because it went down. I can just make it negative. So it's right at the card height, but like I know that has a border, so I'm just gonna add the border as well. And that's pretty close. Maybe I want the hole to be just a little bit higher. So maybe in that case, I want the hole to have that reference, that like origin point to be at the bottom. So actually, in order to change the origin point, I need to change it before I add all those parameters. So let's move the origin point of the circle down. And now it should work. So now I can type that card height and the border. And that placed it kind of where I wanted it. Yeah, because I wanted that circle to be like touching that edge. And now whenever I change the card height, it should update. So that's what I was looking for. And now to make it a real cut, I need to select it and go to modify and flatten. Flatten takes everything that is the same color and then joins it. It's just like a quick visual way of doing it. So if I click on stroke result, that's what the cut would look like. So that's pretty neat. Now I have a hole. And the cut looks the same, but you can see now that it added that hole. And I think the last thing we want to do is be able to add some sort of design. Because now we have like the functional thing. And I wanted to do it relatively quick. So let's add a design, and we know that the design needs to be on the front component. One thing I can do is I can create like a variant of the front, because you might want to have a blank front just to have like a nice little piece of paper. But you could also have one that is decorated. So I'm gonna go here to the front component and I'm gonna duplicate it, just so I can have this variant. And I'm gonna call it front plus decoration. So I'm gonna be making some changes to this one. So it's working just as intended. I probably want this to be a solid thing before I do anything. So I'm gonna select it all, and I'm gonna apply this. So let me explain it better. If this card is gray and the inset is blue, I wanna subtract the blue from the gray. Just kind of like make it into a hole. In this case, I could use that same flatten by making this white, like so, and that would turn into a hole with flatten. And the kind of other way to do it that also makes sense for my brain is to go to modify and hit difference. So that essentially subtracts one from the other. So I end up with my frame. And now I want to like paste something onto it. To make it quick, I went to this, there's this website called the Noun Project, and I searched for Reindeer. This is a website where you can download a bunch of SVGs. And I was looking around for Reindeer, and I want something that is all connected, so it cuts all the same. So the downside of a design like this one, for example, is that the eyes are just floating there. So if I cut it, they're just gonna fall out. And I found this one. This one is kind of cool. When I click on it, this was designed by this person. And then you can purchase it or you can download it with attribution. So I'm gonna be doing this. I'm gonna grab it. Oh no, I did not log in. So I should log into this. The good thing is I actually downloaded it before. So I simply downloaded this SVG. Oh, there we go. Okay. And then once I had it downloaded, I can go to File and then Import SVG or Image. And when I click that, there is this Noun Reindeer that I previously downloaded. And so that's just like a generic SVG that should work in this case. So it just came in here. The only thing I'm going to do right now is I'm going to scale it so it all kind of fits in there. I'm going to give it the same color, that gray, as my frame. Sorry. And now what I want to do is I want to join it to the frame, because right now if I cut it, it's going to be separate. And so in order to do that, I can do join, or I could do flatten. So I'm going to do flatten. And if I check the stroke result, then this is the thing I want to send to my laser. So this is the way you would add your own designs. Let's look at it before I finish. So here it is. So I added that hole for the hanging. The C component didn't change it didn't change at all. And then I have now this reindeer here. And yeah, I mean, I didn't glue this one, but you can probably see how it looks. I'm not sure that this paper is going to be the best with the reindeer. But yeah, so hopefully this can get you started creating your own ornaments. So I'm going to publish this file, this project, and you can grab it and use it as a starting point for your own. So the idea here is that you would go to this, you probably go to this front with decoration component, and you can like say ungroup these or delete it. And then you can get rid of the reindeer and add your own. You can add your own decoration. It could be a simple, star, for example. You would give it a fill, scale it so it touches the edges, and then join it to make it work for you. Or you could, grab it from anywhere else. The last thing perhaps is that sometimes you might want a horizontal card. So in that case, you could this should work if we change the width and the height. So if we flip them around, if we make this one 3 and this one 2, then we can, let's see, is the backer working? Yeah, that works. We get this kind of weird thing here, but like that should also work if you want to make it in a horizontal fashion. All right, so thank you so much for watching. I will be publishing the video and the starting project that you can use to make your own, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.